Okay, so here we go. Video by request. And this is in response to some in my circle of friends getting into arguments over bizarre, unnatural hair colors. I mean, first of all, incorrect hair colors is one thing, non natural hair colors is yet a step further. But let's just go back a second here and discuss hair in general. Why does it even matter? So there was something, studying anthropology, I read the entire study and some very interesting stuff coming out of, and I don't recall, it's been years since I read it. It was either University of San Diego or University of Southern California, but it was down in that region somewhere. And what they were trying to get at was what is the first thing that catches a man's attention when it comes to a woman? And so they coached these people. When I say they coached them, they didn't give them the answer. What they did was they coached out of them what the real answer was, because they all tended to be dishonest about it. For example, the one that always sticks in my mind was there's a guy, he was in a shopping mall, and all the way across the mall from where he was, so you've got a big open area in between them. So he's on one balcony, she's on the balcony on the other side, and he describes her doing window shopping. And so the one of the team leading the research asked, well, what was it about her that first attracted you to her? Obviously, you stared at her for a while, you became interested in her. What was it that got you interested? And, wanting to be a manly man, the first thing he wanted to talk about is something of a sexual nature. So he's like, well, she was really busty. And, the instructor said, well, let me ask you again. How did you meet her? Well, she was across the mall window shopping. So if she was across the mall window shopping into that side of the mall, then she had her back to you? Yes, that's correct. Then how do you know if she was busty or not? And so that's the kind of coaching they would do. It's like, no, you're being dishonest. Maybe she turned around and you discovered that and were fascinated by that, but that's not what first got you looking in that direction. Something about her triggered your interest. What was it? And over time, the guy finally came out and said, the more I think about it, it was her hair. Her hair, it just was the most beautiful hair I've ever seen on anyone, and I couldn't stop looking at her. So the research resulted in 85% of all of the guys, and there were a few thousand who were interviewed like this, and 85% of them said the first thing, if they're being honest, the first thing that caught their attention was her hair. And many of them probably weren't being honest, and so that number's probably skewed and is much higher than that. So that's why it matters. For example, why do Arab women have to wear a head covering? Why did Catholic women in Mass cover their hair? And it says that if a woman will attend public worship without her head covered, then let her head be shaved to make her unattractive, because she is distracting the attention of the men in the congregation from the Mass itself. That's why it's important to cover the hair. And of course, that is supposed to be true all the way up to this day, although obviously there are some flakes out there that don't seem to realize that. So, what is it about this hair then? Let's take a look at this. So I'm sure we've all walked by a room somewhere where someone was studying piano, or maybe it was practicing piano, and all of a sudden they hit a wrong note in a chord, and it's just horrendous. I mean, it feels like someone scraping their fingernails across the blackboard. You could feel it through your whole body. It's just so horrible. So what about when they have all the notes in the chord correct? Now I'm going to oversimplify this, but let's just look at this in terms of harmonics. So what do we mean by harmonics? Okay, so you've got one note. You've got the second note, which is divisible into that by 2. You got the next note, which is divisible into that by 4. So on every wave, in the waveform, you've got a smaller wave divided into it, and an even smaller wave divided into each one of those. And so they're all hitting, like a car running, the engine running. All the pistons are hitting at the same time when they're supposed to. Not at the same time, you know what I'm saying, in this perfect sequence to make the motor turn. So everything is correct in this chord. That's called harmonics, and it's a beautiful sound. Not only does it sound good, but if you've got the notes perfectly, it also gives you greater amplitude so that the music comes across as being louder. So it's beautiful and resplendent. So what is music? Well, it's electromagnetic waves in the electromagnetic spectrum in audible range. So what you can hear. So like when you start getting up into the higher range, it sounds a little more faint to you. When you get into the lower range, it sounds a little more faint to you because it's getting out of your audible range. So when we talk about the color of anything, like this shirt that I'm wearing, it's kind of a maroon color. Is it because my shirt gives off maroon color light? No, it doesn't give off any light at all. What it does is it reflects white light, and it reflects it filtering out only what's going to give you that maroon color. So we're probably talking somewhere around 680 nanometers wavelength. So color, or light, in this case, is reflected light. What is light? Light is the same as sound. It's in the electromagnetic spectrum, and it's in the visual range. And so light, just like sound, has harmonics. That's why when you see someone paint their house interesting colors, and it's like, wow, that's a really beautiful combination. Then you see somebody else have one, and you're like, is this a joke? What are these people doing? This is the most hideous thing I've ever seen. Somebody call the police quick. Sometimes it just looks absolutely horrible. Back in the 1980s, there was a woman, can't remember her name right offhand, Carol something. She wrote a book called Color Me Beautiful. And it was all the rage back in those days. Thousands of people bought this book and they went by it. And basically what it did was it categorized all people, not just women, but men as well, into one of 4 seasons. And as long as you dressed in the colors that matched your season, then you would always look good, and you would look better than those who didn't. And that's all about visual harmony, color harmony. You got the harmonics correct. That has fallen by the wayside, unfortunately. So what I'm saying here is that we're all, created by God in His own image. So we are created with the perfect hair color. That hair color matches our skin tone, and both our hair color and our skin tone match our eye color. That's the way we were created. That's the way we were meant to be. What's that? You don't believe in God? Well, what then? Darwin? Yeah, let's go with that. So you've got Charles Darwin then. He's, I guess, the only other alternative. So in his book about what we would call Darwinism, survival of the fittest, it's on the origin of species by natural selection is what the book is called. And what he's saying there is that over time, something that is weak will fail and die out, and only the strong, only the perfect will continue. So what we are saying is that the hair color that we are born with right now, and the eye color and the skin tone, is the result of millions of years, according to him, of going from tadpoles to monkeys to humanoids to actual humans and different races, and distilling this thing down to its current perfection. So when you decide that you're going to go with like acid green hair, you're basically saying that what Darwin's calling perfection is wrong. So if you're a Darwinist versus a creationist, you're your own worst enemy. You're still wrong and I'm still right. I don't know what more to tell you on that. So you might want to consider this. And the other thing too is, you don't get old before your time. Don't start lopping off your hair and looking manly and everything else. That's your strength. That's the one thing that makes you beautiful. Even if it's long and gray or white, it is what it is. Be happy with it, be proud of it, and go with at least with a natural hair color, which you shouldn't change them at all. but definitely not one of these tutti frutti kind of looking things. And the same thing goes with like color contacts. You don't need to use color contacts. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's all. Kick my soapbox out from under me. I'm done.